Welcome to episode 5 of Extra Pieces. This is my weekly audio journal podcast where I talk about what I'm up to and what I'm into. Probably don't need to do that intro so much anymore now that this is a Patreon exclusive thing, because I'm assuming you probably know who I am, but I kind of like to set it up. Speaking of setting it up, let's set this podcast up. We got to go back in time. I talked about watching the Back to the Future trilogy last week. Well, we're all about to jump in the DeLorean together. It's going to be a tight fit. Might have to squeeze a few people around the flux capacitor in the back. And we got to go all the way back to last Saturday. Personally, a highlight of my week for me. It was a day where I was trying to figure out something for Clark and I to do. We've been kind of stuck in for quite a while. It's a very much winter here. In fact, this week, I'll probably be talking about this next week. We got a lot of snow coming this weekend and then also midweek this coming week. Probably like 5 inches is what they're saying. Who knows what it'll be, but you know, it's been winter for long enough and I'm starting to get a little cabin fever going on. I was like, what's something that we could do where we could go outside? And I thought, how about we use the winter to our advantage? Let's go over to the duck pond that happens to be beside Walmart and let's just go see if everything's frozen over. Clark, last year we went there and he had such a fun time just messing around on the ice. So I was like, let's do that again. And while we're down there, let's just do a little run through Walmart. Let's see if there's any clearance because it's fun going on the hunt. Again, spring pretty far away, it seems, including, we'll talk more about that when Sunday comes around. That's Groundhog Day. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Spring feels so far away. We need to go on a hunt for some type of deal. Yard sale season is seemingly like way off in the distance. Let's go hunting for deals at Walmart. So we went there first. Went through the clearance aisle, and first thing I find a little Lego poly bag for $3.50. I'm like, all right, my day's made. It doesn't take much to make me happy. A $5 poly bag for $3.50. I'm good. We looked around in there. They had some good stuff in clearance, but ultimately we ended up going back to toys. And lo and behold, speaking of Lego, our Walmart has now finally put the lockdown on the Lego stuff. I showed this in a Patreon video when I went to our other Walmart on, I think it was like right after Black Friday. I was picking up a Lego Harry Potter train set. And all of the Lego that they had there was now locked up. Very much like video games have always been, where you have to call associate over to get the key and then they open it up and then they give you the thing you want. And I'm just like, dude, I understand why they do it because people probably like ripping boxes open, stealing stuff. I know from firsthand experience, I remember looking at when they put the CMFs into that's collectible minifigs. I got to remember not everyone's here for the Lego, right? They put those into boxes where you could no longer feel for what was inside. And I went in and all of the boxes were ripped open because people, they apparently don't want to pay $5 for something they don't know what it is. So they decided to take matters in their own hands and figure out what's inside. And then they left them all behind. So I imagine that's probably happening with other sets. And Lego, I would say like aisle for aisle, probably one of the most expensive aisles. Speaking from personal experience here, my wallet's still crying over all these years. Probably most expensive aisle in the store, I would say. Although I wonder if there is a more, probably the cigarette aisle. There's like a cigarette section and card section that's kind of like up the front. That's probably the most expensive, but this one's unmanned. So I understand why they did that, but it's kind of a bummer because sometimes you like to go in, you like to like spin the box around, look at things, and they're all locked up. So I think I'm not going to do like this isn't serious by any means. I'm not like boycotting Walmart, but I think I'd rather just go to Target to buy my Lego sets because it's a better experience. It's a better shopping experience. But we went looking around in there and looked at the action figures and stuff, all the things we enjoy doing. I just like to window shop, essentially. Literally window shopping now that everything's locked behind glass. Clark, man, he's been into Nerf lately, and his buddy Nick was coming over the next day, which we'll get to, and he wanted to get a new Nerf gun. So I was like, okay, let's take a look. And he found this Fortnite one he liked, but it was $20. And Mr. Clark Man Moneybags here, he is so conservative when it comes to his savings. Like all the money that he gets for Christmas, his birthday, everything, he saves it. He saves everything. He's a saver. If there's anything that he learned from me, it's probably that. Like I've always been very responsible when it comes to money. Maybe a little too responsible in some cases. But he's looking at this thing, he wants it, he's him hauling around. I say, okay, how about I split it with you? You do $10, I do $10. And he's still him hauling. So I was just like, all right, buddy, just get it. You won't regret it. He got it. And he didn't regret it, which we'll talk about. So after Walmart, we left there. We went over to the pond, and all the ducks were out, all the geese, everything. It was exactly what I was hoping for, and it was just such a fun experience. I made a whole video on this whole thing, so you could watch that. It's like 30 minutes long. A part of me kind of regretted having the Walmart part in front of the pond part, because like that's really what I'd rather show. I don't want to show like the consumerism of going through Walmart, for example. I mean, it's fun and people enjoy it, I suppose. And I enjoy it too. But like the highlight of the day for me wasn't looking for clearance. It was being outside and enjoying the time with Clark Man out there, who was very, very interested in, probably like many other 10-year-olds, taking as many rocks or as big rocks as he could find and throwing them onto the ice to see if it has any impact on it, literally. And we did a bunch of that, and he was just having so much fun out there, just like playing on the ice. He was laying on the ice, sleeping on the, he's doing everything. And it was just like so much fun. And it was an experience that didn't cost any money. We didn't have to pay for this. There's no admission. There's no lines. There's no buying things. It's just exploring nature. And I loved it. And I love the ducks and stuff. And I think next time we go, there's 2 things I wish I would have brought. Number 1, an RC truck to go onto the ice, because that would have been epic. That really would have taken it to the next level. Even though there's all these rocks out there, because some kid was throwing rocks all over the ice. You could also ice skate out there, but also equally dangerous for the same reason. But I also wish I would have brought some food for the ducks. There was a person that just drove up, dumped a bunch of food out and just left. Didn't even stay behind to see the ducks. Maybe they just like feel like that's their duty to feed them. And they all came trucking over, and it was pretty cool. So we got to see it, but I want them to like walk up to me because they're naturally kind of scared for obvious reasons. But I enjoyed being out there quite a bit. That's the same place that we go to play disc golf too. And I asked Clark that day before we left, I'm like, should we take some discs? But I'm kind of glad we didn't, because it was pretty darn cold out there. I didn't take any gloves, and I wish I would have done that. So maybe the car needs to be packed with a few things. Food for ducks. Maybe I'll leave that one at home. We definitely need to keep like an RC car in the car. I think there just always needs to be an RC in there, just in case there's an opportunity that arises. You just never know. Keep the discs in there, and just like have some like maybe some gloves, sweatshirts, things like that, just as it's like a bug out bag when we're not bugging out anywhere. We're just having fun out in the wild. But it'd be good to have all those things, to have it planned for. So I might need to do some more prepping to make that a thing. That way in the future we can have as much fun as we possibly can if in any given circumstance. So that was our day out on Saturday, and it was nice. It was a sunny day, although cold, and we just had so much fun. The next day though was a national holiday, mostly to people here in Pennsylvania, I suppose. Most people probably don't care too much about Groundhog Day. It's Groundhog Day. But we do. We love it. In fact, we watched the Groundhog Day movie the night before. I have a whole watch-a-text section here. I guess that I'll just get into now. So we watched Groundhog Day Saturday night, which, if you haven't seen, is the story of Bill Murray, who is a TV weatherman. He goes to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, which is where Groundhog Day takes place. And the whole premise behind Groundhog Day is that they pull this groundhog named Punxsutawney Phil out of his little burrow, and he comes out, and if he sees his shadow, which is pretty likely because there's thousands of cameras and lights and everything on him, maybe the sun in some cases, we have 6 more weeks of winter. Otherwise, I guess it's just spring. Spring at the very beginning of February. Wouldn't that be nice? Anyways, this story is about Phil Connors, who is the weatherman that goes there to report. And it turns out like he's kind of a jerk. Like he's a big jerk, actually. And he goes through his day, and then they get a blizzard and he gets snowed in. So he has to stay in Punxsutawney overnight. And he wakes up the next day and it's Groundhog Day again. And he keeps reliving this day over and over again. And he does all the things that you would do if you were living the day with no consequences. He learns new things. He actually kidnaps Phil at one point. He drives down railroad tracks, like you name it. Like if you had infinite time to do stuff, he learns how to play piano. He courts a few ladies, pretty much everything that we would all do, right? Mrs. Protect, are you watching? No. It's a fun movie. It's from I think 92, 93. So it's a little dated, but we watch it as tradition, and Clark loves it too. So that was fun. The night before, I'll fill in the movie that we watched Friday night, literally after recording the last extra pieces. We watched this crazy cringe movie called The Dirt Bike Kid, which is on YouTube. If you want to watch it, it's free. And it stars Ralphie from Christmas Story. Don't know his actual name, just Ralphie as I know him. And he gets this dirt bike for $50. It's a piece of junk, and then fixes it up. And then the dirt bike somewhat comes to life. And this is where I'm losing everyone. And helps him accomplish these goals, namely trying to save the neighborhood hot dog restaurant from this evil banker that's trying to put a bank where the hot dog store is. And the guy's ripping up the mortgage essentially that owns the bank, and is going to put the hot dogs, or put the bank where the hot dog place is. And it's up to this kid to stop that from happening. And the reason I chose this movie, I knew it would be like super cringe. It's from like 80s, of course. Um, Clark has told us that his favorite kind of movies are ones where kids go off on adventures without their parents and end up like defeating some bad guys and having an adventure along the way. And when I read the plot summary of this movie, or like the summary of it, I was like, this is exactly the type of movie that Clark likes. Kid going on adventure without his parents. I feel a little offended about that personally, but he goes off and then defeats this evil banker using a motorcycle that kind of comes to life. Dirt Bike Kid. If that didn't sell you, I don't know what will. But that was our two movies. To round out Watch Tech while we're here, I'm also watching Inventing Anna on Netflix. I have like a couple episodes of it left. It's not great. I kind of am regretting spending my time on it, but I'll report back once I finish it up. I didn't really watch any other things. I've just been like YouTubing and stuff and listening to something, which we'll talk about later because I'm getting way ahead of myself here. Let's go back to Groundhog Day. Let's relive it. So that morning we got up and we put the live stream on YouTube where they're live streaming from Punxsutawney, and it's a whole experience. I did a little video showing some of the highlights of it here on Patreon, so you could look back at that. And if you didn't know any better, you think it's a cult. Like, it's some pretty wild stuff. Like, these people are going crazy about this mysterious, like, fortune-telling groundhog animal that can predict the weather. And there's a lot of dancing, people like ceremonies. There's this inner circle of people that come out. Like, it's definitely a cult, but it's super fun. And spoiler alert for this year, Phil saw the shadows. So we have 6 more weeks of winter, which is why we're getting 5 inches of snow tomorrow. It's the only explanation. So thanks for that, Phil. He is a cute little bugger, though. Like, I really want one. I definitely want to, like, snuggle with him, and I want to boop his little snout a little bit, boop his snoot. And, I just want to, like, hug him and squeeze him and everything. But I don't know if he would like that so much. He's got claws. He's probably pretty tame. And I like to think that Phil, outside of Groundhog Day, which is, I'm assuming, very traumatic for him, because there's music playing and lights and all these people are there, I want to think that the rest of the year he lives a pretty good life. Like, they probably feed him pretty well. He probably has a pretty decent setup, I would assume. But this has been going on for, like, I think 1887, I looked it up, was the first Groundhog Day. So it's tradition. And there's a part of me that really wants to go there. I want to go and experience Groundhog Day. And someone commented on the video that you can actually still go to the bed and breakfast that Bill Murray stays at and, like, have that experience. I imagine that's a pretty popular thing to do around Groundhog Day, but I just think that would be pretty cool. I love the movie. I think the movie is what's made this so special for me, honestly. Like, if it wasn't for the movie Groundhog Day, I probably wouldn't care too much about Groundhog Day outside of that it's in Pennsylvania. But I'm curious, you other people that don't live here, what's your experience of Groundhog Day? Is it just another day? Do you even pay attention to it? Like, does the whole idea of 6 more weeks of winter even matter if you're living in beautiful Southern California and it's just sunny there well, maybe not the best place to live with the wildfires. I've been watching people's videos that have been documenting, like, the before and after of their home with the Los Angeles wildfires, and it's like it crushes me. Like, I know how much goes into, like, getting your first home. Like, this guy, it was like these 2 guys that make videos together, both bought homes in the Pacific Palisades, and the one guy had just finished remodeling it, got it all set up. It was exactly what he wanted, was so excited to finally own his own home, and then it's gone. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like, it makes me sick to even think about it. And all your stuff, your collectibles, your Lego collection, like, fortunately, like, there's some warning for such things. Like, you can evacuate, which is, with those people, maybe those things happen so often that you're not as concerned. Like, if they told me a wildfire was coming over the mountain over there, I'd be grabbing everybody and everything and we'd be heading out. But maybe in that case, you're like, well, the highways over here, we're probably going to be okay. I don't know. But I like, in the tier list of natural disasters, I still think, like, the one that I wouldn't want to experience the most, like, if you could choose such things, I think tornado, because there's just such a little warning for something like that. Or house fire, I suppose. That's up there too. But, like, hurricane or floods, you got some time to, like, get prepped. Wildfires, I guess you got some time. But, like, the question is, when these disasters happen, these people still own this land, and, like, that land's obviously very valuable because it's, like, in one of the most like prestigious places to live in the United States, do you rebuild? Like, would you want to put your house back there for this to potentially happen all over again? Like, I would really start to question that. So I don't know what these peeps are going to do. Plus, you got all these, like, I think about the logistics of this, and this is like way off from my week, but it's just something that like kind of came up in conversation here and something that I was thinking about when this happened. I know we're a little untimely here for this, and but all these people need to build at the same time. I know how hard it is here just to get anybody to do anything for you, even the simplest of tasks, like maybe assembling a mailbox for you. Struggle. And now imagine if every single person also lost their mailbox. It could be a boon, I suppose, for people that live elsewhere to like to move to that area and be like, I'm a contractor, let's go to work. But then I think about like how expensive everything is these days, like lumber prices and like just to rebuild a home. Oh, terrible. All you can hope, I guess, is these folks had some insurance. And what I would do, like if it was me personally, I know it'd be hard to leave that beautiful area, but I'd probably take the insurance money and I'd skedaddle. I'd go somewhere else that has a few things. Rainfall would be good. Number one on the list, access to water would be nice. And maybe a place that doesn't have so many natural disasters. You might not be living on the beach anymore in like a beautiful area. You might have to move to the middle of Pennsylvania in the mountains. But I can tell you this, your cost of living is going to go down dramatically, and that house that you had insured for like $1 million or whatever, it's going to go pretty far here. Will you get a job anywhere? That's the question. So yeah, I don't know. That's just a really tough situation to be in. But man, it's so many people displaced, and to see those videos from it is crazy. It reminds me of when we were in Maui and the Lahaina fires happened there shortly after we left. And I was just thinking about all that history and all those things just wiped. And like, I've looked at Google Maps now and it's just crazy to see like just gone. Anyways, now that we're all depressed together, geez Louise, let's go back to Sunday. How do we go there? This isn't supposed to bring you down. I mean, I guess it's not supposed to really do anything other than bring you along. I share whatever happened this week. It could be a good week, bad week, hopefully mostly good. But Sunday was good. After Phil discovered that it was going to be 6 more weeks of winter, Clarkman had his buddy Nick over, and they played Nerf, and they did all their thing. I went on the grind. I let them do their own thing. I don't get involved in it. But I came down and went on the grind in the world of Lego. Continuing sorting this week. I pretty much spend like all of my time on that, which is fine because it's winter time, and there's not much else to do outside of apparently shoveling snow and going and playing on the ice. This is like a tourism poster for Pennsylvania. That's what this is. I feel like everything I'm saying is building this up. Like, do you want to live in the land of Punxsutawney Phil? Do you want to live in the land of really not many natural disasters? Do you want to be playing on the ice with your son and throwing rocks? Come to Pennsylvania. It's a dream come true. But he came over, they had fun. I went on the Lego grind. In fact, this week I did a few different things in the world of Lego when it comes to experimenting. You know, you can only do the same thing so many times before it's like, okay, what can I do differently? This time I decided that I would try a first person live stream situation. I said I wasn't going to live stream publicly this year, but I've had so many people asking for it on the Lego thing. They're like, you know, I love 15-minute videos or 20-minute videos, but you know, some of us are like actually like sorting with you or organizing, and we like to listen in while you do something. I was like, all right, fine, let me do something fun here. Did this setup with a chest strapped action camera and a microphone. It didn't completely go as planned because the microphone like was causing interference, and the audio wasn't great in my opinion, but it ultimately worked and people seemed to like it. I made a behind the scenes video on it that was pretty fun. And I'm just like trying new things and having a good time. In fact, the next day I had a bunch of parts to put away. And I don't know whether this video is going to see the light of day or not. I might just look at it and see what I think. I put the chest strap back on with the microphone, and I spent like almost an hour putting parts away and just kind of talking my way through it. And I'm like, well, if this is what people want, these super long ass videos that are like, it's like, I just feel like it might be non-tent. That's my worry. I don't know whether to put it out. Maybe I'll make it a Patreon video. You have an hour of me putting Lego parts away. I don't even think even you would want to watch that. I don't know. I mean, you sit here and listen to me talk about this, but I feel like this is like much better content than putting Lego parts away. But maybe that's what people want. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at it. It'll be a game time decision. I'm gonna have to look at the footage and stuff. There's no editing that needs to be done, so that's cool. It's just kind of like running through it. And yeah, that was kind of a big fun thing. Also, another fun thing that happened this week. I talked about the weather not really cooperating. Well, sometimes it works out in your favor. Punxsutawney Phil sometimes has her back. And this week we had like a big ice event, which my driveway is still, we could probably go out with the truck or ice skates and skate on it right now. We had this ice event, which made a remote day for us. And what I decided to do with that remote day was something that I thought would be memorable and really fun for Clark and myself. I ended up hooking the Nintendo Switch up to the projector that I have up here, and we played Super Mario 64 on the big screen. And I have to say, I love that game because it's like a part of my childhood. And I still remember like the first time I played it. I remember getting the Nintendo 64 for Christmas, like glorious times, back when the world was so simple and we didn't have any worries. Well, that game, I'll tell you what, it did not hold up well. And I don't think many Nintendo 64 games did, because they're still trying to figure out the whole 3D environments thing, coming from like the pinnacle of 2D side scrolling, like the new Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, nailed it. Then we're going to try 3D. And Mario, as much as they did a nice job with like everything, like it's kind of a miracle that game happened. Those controls and that camera are the bane of my existence. There's so many experiences in the game where it seems like something seemingly simple to do, but you're just fighting that darn camera constantly. And like you dream of the day where there's a right stick on there that you can move the camera around. That's like something I guess they didn't think of at the time, that like ultimately like these first person shooters like Halo was like, what if we put a right stick in and you use that to move around and then use the other stick to move forward and back? And it's so much better than mashing on the C buttons on the N64 controller. I know I'm speaking to someone's soul right now and trying to navigate these levels where you can't see half of what you're trying to do. And then the controls are very slippy too, I find. Even though Mario has a whole unique set of jumps and things you can do, it's brutal. But we are 40 stars deep now. We started this a while back, but like I'm back into it now. And I would love to like get all the stars. I know that'd be an absolute nightmare, but I don't know. I'm enjoying it. So I think we're going to do more of that tonight too. We're going to play Mario 64 on the projector. And there's like no lag. It's glorious. Like kid me would have dreamed to play Nintendo on like a massive screen like that. I would have lost my mind. I wish so many times that I could just provide to my, like, I wish I could live the life that Clark's living. I wish that. How many parents out there wish they had the life that their kids have? I guess that's a sign that you like, hopefully you're doing good as a parent. But my parents, it just came down to lack of money, I suppose. Like we didn't have the money for all those things. And like they didn't really put the time in, as I've talked about before. But, you know, I don't hold grudges. I create my own life is the way I see it. It's so easy to like be angry at someone or be like, why didn't we do this or whatever? But it's like, you know what? I became an adult. I got my own money. And then I decided that I'm going to do all the things that I wanted to do. And, you know, being that I have a kid with me, it's justifiable that I go shopping for Legos all the time, or we go to the amusement parks and things like this. Cause it's like, I'm just living my childhood now. And I don't regret that at all. I've gotten some mean comments here and there where people are like, you know, you're more like a kid than a dad. And it's like, well, is there anything wrong with that? Is there anything wrong with being someone's parent and like provider and also being their friend? I don't think so. And the way that Clark and I's relationship is we're just like, we're like in tune with each other. It's a vibe, as the kids would say. Like, did the kids even say that? Like, we're just like, we're dialed in, right? Like me and him are just like, we're like peas and carrots. And, you know, throw Mrs. Bricktech in the mix there too. Me and her are like peas and carrots. So we just got we're like peas, carrots. What else do you put with peas and carrots? Hot dogs. I don't know. Peas, carrots, and onions. I don't know. We're like that. We just have a great bond here. And I'm thankful for this. Like it's good stuff. So that was Sunday, and that was kind of like the rest of the week, a lot of Lego sorting and stuff. And we did some gaming. I talked about the things we watched. I am doing a little redetect here. I started reading Shoe Dog finally by Phil Knight. Bought this book a little while ago, and I'm like, hey, I need to start listening to this. And I've been doing the thing where I listen to it before I go to sleep. And some nights, like I'll put the 30-minute timer on, and then I'll wake up and like it's off. And then I'm like, where did I leave off? And I'm like 1 minute into that. Like I instantly fell asleep. Then there, like last night, I let Roxy Bear out and I was awake a little bit. Problem was I got onto Reddit while I let her out. I was just like, let me just check out Reddit. And there was a topic on there that got me a little like concerned. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm starting to think about that. I wish I need to get off of Reddit. It was kind of like, kind of about our I shouldn't probably go into it too much, but it's kind of like about our political system, the way it is now and where it's going, and ask people like, what level of concerned are you? And it turns out it's very, very weird because some people, like on a 1 to 10 scale, they asked, some people like 11 out of 10, 15 out of 10, like super concerned about like what's happening. And other people 0 out of 10. And it's weird to see people living in living in the same reality, but having two different realities with themselves. And I just thought that was kind of weird, you know, like you would think that we'd all be having the same experience, but we're seemingly having two very different experiences, maybe depending on where you voted. But yeah, I was thinking about that. And then I was like, well, let me just listen to Shoe Dog a little bit. And I hit that like extend timer button probably twice, maybe 3 times. So I was awake for at least an hour and a half. And I'm really enjoying the book. I should probably explain what the book is. Holy smokes. Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Phil Knight is the founder of Nike. You might have heard of them. They make shoes. Yeah. And it talks about, it basically summarizes his life from like 1960 to like 1980 when he was just kicking off the company. I no pun intended, maybe pun intended. And how he graduated college and then went on like a trip to Japan because he was thinking about how amazing Japanese products were at the time and like thinking about bringing like their quality shoes, particularly running shoes, to the United States. And then he struck up a deal with his company. I'm in like 1966 right now. And then he started selling shoes here and it started doing really well. And then he started getting more shoes shipped over. I don't know at what point he starts making his own shoes, but right now he's just like a salesman for this like Japanese shoe company called, they're called Tigers. And, that's going pretty well, but he also picked up a job as like an accountant in the meantime. Now, this isn't like a rags to riches story because as I'm like reading this, Phil Knight went to Oregon, then he went to Stanford, and his dad was some type of like, he was well-to-do. They lived in a very nice house. So this wasn't like a really poor kid that came from nothing. He definitely had means, and his dad like guaranteed his first loan and helped him travel. Like he went traveling all over the world and he had the opportunity to do that. And you'll find that with a lot of these like self-made guys, like the Bezoses of the world who got like a $300,000 loan from their parents, or like Bill Gates, whose mom was on the board of IBM and gave him opportunities that regular people wouldn't have had. Steve Jobs, maybe a little different. You know, he's just like he was an adopted kid that lived in just a normal house in California and started making computers out of his garage with the brilliance of his friend, Steve Wozniak. I have mad respect for him, even though I have his autobiography or his biography by Walter Isaacson, something like that. And and his reputation, I think, is out there, but he was a big jerk. And I don't have too much respect for that. Like if you don't treat people right, I don't love that, but he demanded perfection and excellence. So I guess there is something to be said there. But yeah, all these people, even like your Elon Musks of the world, parents super wealthy, own apparently like a diamond mine or an emerald mine in South Africa. Like, we love the American dream and that story of coming from nothing, and plenty of people do that. But some people definitely had a head start in life, you know? So that makes me respect other people even more that like really came from nothing. And maybe that's why I like hip hop music somewhat, because like a lot of these guys come from nothing, but even some of these guys, they paint their past in a way that's very different from what it is, you know? So I don't know, believe as much as you want to. And if a story inspires you, I say go with it. But sometimes if you look deeper, you're like, wait a minute. Your mom was on the board of directors at IBM. I'd consider that a little bit of an advantage, wouldn't you? In terms of everyone else that's trying to start like Windows, for example. Anyways, no hate on Bill Gates or anybody. Just my thoughts on such things as the American dream coming from nothing. And it seems like everyone thinks that they're going to be that guy. So like when it comes to like making those type of people like pay their fair share, for example, you're like, no, we can't do that because one day I'm going to be Bill Gates and I don't want to be taxed. And it's like, will you though? You think so? You think that's going to happen? I don't know. Like you're working at like the tire shop right now, like putting tires in people's cars. I don't know if like that. I don't know if that's going to happen for you, but you know, don't want to crush anybody's dreams because everyone should have something that they aspire to. But yeah. Anyways, in other news, let's move on from all that. Health Attacked, doing elliptical every day, feeling good. I make that first part of my day, and it's crazy how quickly the time flies. When I'm on there, I message people, I watch YouTube videos, I look at like news. Probably shouldn't do that. I look at the stock market. Some days shouldn't do that. I'm just curious about a lot of things, and yeah, I put the time in on there, and it's like it just melts away, like the fat that I'm trying to get rid of, right? So I think that was like pretty much everything I did except for maybe the coolest thing, and that happened yesterday. We ended up going to an estate sale. I told you earlier, like spring feels so far away, getting a little antsy, cabin fever setting in. I miss like deal hunting. I resorted to going to Walmart to look for clearance there. Deb told me about an estate sale that was happening, and she said there was a lot of toys, and I was like, okay, let me look at the pictures. And I did, and there was a starting lineup thing there. It was like the dream team from the 92 Olympics, and I was like, I need to go check that out. I don't know what the price is, but we need to go check it. We get there, the whole giant table full of lots of great collectibles. Made a whole video about this, so you can watch that, of course. The starting lineup thing was overpriced, as was most things there. But just when I was about to give up, and maybe this is like a lot of things in life, just when you're about ready to give up on that dream you had, I found 2 Lego sets sealed, $5 each. Everything there was like literally eBay prices, if not more than eBay, including shipping. Like it's almost like they just looked at eBay, not even sold listings. They're like, oh, somebody's asking $120 for this game. It's $120. You look at sold listings, it sells for like 90, 100. Okay, fine. Do whatever you want. These 2 Lego sets, they're from Cars 2. We had Tow Mater and Lightning McQueen, both $5 each. I looked it up. Lightning McQueen's like $80 and the Tow Mater's like $50. Budman, of course, takes him instantly and walks over and goes to pay for him because you know what he's going to do. He's going to get a deal. He got him for $3 each, and I'm going to sell him on eBay. That's like my first big score of the year. And that like really like I needed that in my system, you know? Like estate sales I don't do really well at. Yard sales I love. Like I am so very much looking forward to the end of April when every single week there's a community yard sale that I go to. And I just love spending my Fridays and Saturdays doing that. It's like my favorite thing. And I miss it during the winter time. Like I wish it was just happened all year. So this gave me like that little bit of something that I needed, you know, to like to get the deals flowing through the veins again. So I was all excited about that. And that like outside of taking Clark Man to the park and like having that experience, that was my other like win of the week or highlight of my week was getting those cool scores. And it was an awesome thing. But outside of that, not many deals. I went back today to try to like wheel and deal because today was 50% off day, but someone bought the starting lineup thing. They got ripped off. I'm sorry. I don't know what they paid for it, but they paid too much probably. And I tried making a deal on this game that I found, but the lady wasn't willing to budge. And she was saying like the price was twice of what it was that she was charging. And in reality, it was slightly under what she was charging. And I wanted some margin there to flip it, but no harm, no foul. I went over to the grocery store and got some food for us this weekend. Clark requested wings tonight for dinner. So I was like, all right, let's get some wings and I'll make some wings for us. And yeah, that was like pretty much my whole week. I consider it to be a good week. It was like Groundhog Day week. I didn't really do much of vlogging. I told you I'm kind of getting out of vlogging the day-to-day activities. Maybe that'll change once spring kind of comes around and more things are happening, but I just don't want to film myself like, all right, guys, now I'm recording the podcast. All right, now I'm getting lunch. All right, now I'm sorting Lego. Next day, okay, I'm sorting Lego. Next day, okay, I'm sorting. I just think it's just boring. And I've had some people ask like, hey, where's the videos? But I don't know. I just think they're like sometimes just like with the weather, content creation can be seasonal too. And I guarantee you I won't be doing nearly as much Legoing once the summer comes around, and I'll be doing a lot more of the vlogging things. So everything kind of goes in seasons, but my goal is to have everything nicely organized and like sorted and put away. That way, when summer comes around and we're building, say it's raining outside, we got all of our parts ready for us. So that's what I'm like really working on, and it's been fun bringing people along with me on that journey. Speaking of bringing people along on a journey, listener feedback. You guys, and I have to warn you here, you got a little mouthy in these comments here. There are quite a few, and everybody that commented, they're pretty lengthy. So I'm going to warn you ahead of time, but if you enjoy listener feedback as much as I do, you're in for a treat because I'm going to read through all of these, starting with Ray, the legend himself. He says, hey, Greg, happy Groundhog's Day. 6 more weeks, buddy. Ray, don't remind me. He says, I'm glad that Cody was able to spend time with ladies on a retreat in such a beautiful place. It was wonderful that you and Clark were able to have a guys' weekend. This feels like I'm going so far back reading this. It's like, oh, yeah, that did happen. Let me try to move this so I can see things that I'm trying to see. Okay, he goes on to say, great fun and junk food. Don't tell. Don't tell, Ray. Pringles fingers. That was the most interesting part of the weekend. I didn't think they were very good, but continue to take advantage of every excuse to spend time with Clark. Such a wonderful little soul. Lego sorting has been so much fun to watch. I'm glad you've both been able to lose some. You've been able to lose some weight and that you're feeling better about the health situation. Yeah, like I'm not sick right now, so it's great. The documentary sound intriguing. The We Are the World song was amazing. That miracle happened. Agreed. To be able to get Ray Charles, Dylan, Springsteen, Stevie Wonder, Prince, Lauper, Willie Nelson, and others together was amazing. It is. Like, I don't know if you could pull that off today. I remember seeing the video the first time on MTV. It was so fun pointing out all the artists. 80 million is simply amazing. The education issues are so vast, we could talk for hours. I think we need to start gearing more towards aptitude and not concrete standards. I think that would be a good idea too. Cody and I have talked about that, where it's like, maybe when you get to high school and she's trying to like, the way that they do English, there's like 2 English courses to choose from. And it's like either academic or like the basic level. And she's trying to break it down to like 5 different levels for like kids that are planning to go to college. You take like the advanced stuff. If you're thinking about going into trades, maybe take like a business communication class as your English class. So you learn how to make a resume, how to communicate with other people, like including customers and bosses, how to write emails. There's all these different ways that you could differentiate this for all these people, instead of just like grouping everybody into like 2 different groups that some of them may not fit into. I think that's a frustrating thing with school, is that like you're teaching to all these different kids that are all very different. And while you're like trying to hit the middle of this group, people on the outsides of it, whether you're really smart or maybe really like inclined to work on engines or whatever the case is, you're missing those people. So you do need to break it down quite a bit. But again, like education is one of those things that it's just so challenging to accommodate everyone. Maybe AI will change that. Maybe you'll have like an AI teacher that figures out exactly where you're at. Maybe you'll put your AR goggles on, your Apple Vision Pro, and that's where you'll be in class. I don't know. Hopefully not. But it's a challenging thing that I don't know if anyone really has a good answer for. But you know, we'll see how things play out. It definitely doesn't help trying to get rid of the Department of Education. I'll leave that out there. You can decide what you want to do with that. But maybe we need to put more into that. Or maybe if that system's not working, maybe you make a new, I don't know. But you got to have a plan. You got to come up with something here. Because like the way I see it, these kids are the future. You know, like these are the future people that will be taking care of you when you're in a retirement home and you need like yourself wiped and cleaned up. And if those people aren't being successful and striving for greatness and investing into the system and creating like this amazing thing with all the tax dollars they're earning with their incredible jobs that they got because they were so educated, what happens then? I don't know. It's maybe people have always felt this way. I don't know. Anyways, he goes on to say, I think we need to, okay, we got that part. Not everyone is going to be able to pass Algebra 2, and there's no need to try to force it. Agreed. Focusing on the traditional R's, like a lot of European countries at early ages, would do the world a lot of good. Social sciences need to be diverted to middle school and high school. Anyway, we could talk for hours on the mess that has been created by the No Child Left Behind and the Department of Education. Facts. In teaching to tests. That's kind of what the No Child Left Behind is. It's just like, here's my biggest thing. You could literally graduate high school right now and be at a 1st grade reading level. Like my thoughts are like, and you would get a diploma. My thoughts are a diploma should be something that is for people that meet all the requirements that's required of you. It should almost be like a stamp of approval from that school saying this person is qualified to work for you or to go to your college. If you have a 1st grade reading level and they just keep pushing you through and giving you like, opportunities to just like learn at your level, and then you get a diploma, and then say you go to a job with this other person that never met the qualifications, and I wouldn't assume that you're competing for the same job, but like, I don't know. I just like, if you're at a 1st grade reading level, you should be in a 1st grade reading class. And it doesn't matter if you're 15 years old and everyone else in there is 6. That's the class you need to be in. And they just don't want that. They just want to push everybody through. And then you end up with people that end up with high school diplomas that aren't literate. And that's crazy. Like if you leave school and you can't read, that's a problem, I feel like. But, you know, again, there's different things for different people. And there could be a person that can't read, but is exceptional at engineering something or designing or being an artist. And I think that's great. Like not everyone needs to fit into the little box that we try to put them in. But I don't know. I don't, obviously I don't have the answers for such things. Anyways, behind the, I'm glad Roxy, I should stop interrupting Ray's comments here. I'm glad Roxy's able to get some exercise. Sorry about the change of plans. Bank that money on another trip to Hawaii or Australia. I am praying for you guys and Deb and Bud to have life stabilized. Cats are so much easier. So great that Clark is getting introduced us to classic old movies. I hope that the week ahead is wonderful. You all deserve a week of health and stability. Please give Cody and my buddy Clark all the best. Thanks for all you do for this community. Thank you, Ray. Thank you for the lovely comment and the discussion there. And again, I hope like some of the things I worry some of the things that I say, and these are things that I honestly feel. I hope that things that I say don't alienate you. And I hope that we, like maybe if you feel differently than me, like maybe you think that school is perfect as it is, or anything is great. Maybe I don't feel the same way, or other people like, I think we can all come together and be like, okay, well, like we can have a discussion on this or like have different opinions. I think that's perfectly fine. I don't believe that anyone should have to believe what other people think. And you should come up with your own thoughts on things and like, see how you feel. Next one comes from Kelly. It says, hey, Greg, another enjoyable Sunday afternoon podcast. I listened to the monthly update as well. It's kind of short, but also enjoyable, and it felt fresh, even though I listened to all the extra pieces. Yeah, I kind of felt bad on that one. Like, it was like 20 minutes long, and I'm like, all these extra pieces are well over an hour. But like, by the time I got to doing that, I was just like, I've already talked about everything I want to talk about, Like, it's tough. So I'm going to keep doing that because I want to commit to those people that, I'm still there for them, but I feel like they're getting like the Lepin version sort of what this is. And I don't know how to feel about that. Maybe I just need to recap everything or recount it all again. I just don't want to do that because I need it to be like, this is my release, once it's gone, it's gone. She goes on to say, I'm curious about what is the doom and gloom of Reddit. I'm not very big on Reddit or much of a news watcher. Just stay that way. I read the headlines, but that's about it. I'm a registered independent because I don't trust either of the two main parties. I will say if I spend too much time paying attention to politics, it gets depressing real quick. Facts. I try to be the change I want to see in the world, and thank you for all the positivity and that you fan put out. It's a part of what's good in this world. I think you're doing the right thing. That's probably my biggest mistake is I get on Reddit and I read like some of the things that are actually happening. And then I start reading the commentary on that of what people are saying and feeling. Did we just go out of focus? And I think that's where I get into trouble. And sometimes Reddit can become an echo chamber depending on how you feel. So say you really love video games. You'd be surprised how much video game stuff Reddit will show you. It's kind of like a little bit like TikTok and their algorithm where they kind of discover things that you're into and that you spend your time on. They're like, oh, we want to keep him here, so let's give him or her more of that. And what you end up is like seeing, like if you start looking at like political stuff, for example, as you talk about, and then you're like, oh boy, that doesn't seem like a good thing. The next thing you see is like, oh, that's a even worse thing. And then more and more, and it just starts piling on. And then you start like getting like really worried and fearful of the future and depressed, like you said. And it's like, is anything good coming from this? Should I be spending my time on this? Would I be better off? And I hate to say this, but like, would I be better off being ignorant? Should I just not know anything? Should I go back to what it's like to be a kid where you don't know about the events of the world? And then you just like live in your own little bubble. Maybe that's for the best, but I also think like that's not a great thing. But then I also think like, what can I really do to change it? I'm sure a lot of us kind of feel the same way. Unless, there could be a chance though right now that you think everything is perfect. And if you live in that world, like I wish I could be there. I want to be there with you. Next one comes from Megan. Thank you for the comment, by the way. Kelly. So I agree with you in the misses about the education these days. My son's kindergarten teacher was sent home 2 report cards so far this year, and each time she emails us saying how much she disagrees with report cards at their age. She always says she sees so much more on a daily basis than she could ever put on a report card. In the daycare setting, I've taught 3 to 4-year-olds for 3 straight years. You survived it. I love kids that age. I remember when Clark was that age, they're so fun. Until they start getting a little drama. I feel like the drama happened like 5. Like there's a little drama there, but those kids are so cute and fun. I would do that job, honestly. It'd be so much fun. Anyway, she says the group I have now were born in 21. That means by the time they started daycare, they're finally out of daily mask wearing, and these kids actually saw emotion as babies. Babies learn by seeing faces and how we react. The 2 classes before didn't. That affected them so much. That's interesting. I still see struggles with, but this class handles emotions interactions so much better than the last 2 classes. My son was 6 months when the world shut down, and so much was taken from him when he should have been out exploring the world and people. I think a lot of us with kids felt that way. A lot of us without kids felt that way. Places were closed and gets-togethers didn't happen often. So I think there's hope. We just have to help these kids that had a world shut down around them during crucial development years. Yeah, those kids, they at this point, they would have been with Cody's kids, they would have been like 8th grade. So some of those are probably still dealing with that as well. Where, you're in middle school. I don't think there's any particular age that like isn't affected by something like that. Unless you're a hermit. If you're like me and you just love being at home and you're working in your basement on Lego stuff, not too much of an impact. But when you're a kid that should be out there like integrating and being a part of things, that's challenging, especially if you were in, I think, like middle school or high school at the time when you should have been socializing quite a bit. Like that's an important thing. And you were stuck at home on Zoom calls for your classes. Not great. But I want to say thankfully we're beyond that. In fact, I opened up the closet the other day and Cody had like all of her old masks hanging there on the door. And I was just thinking like how weird that seems now that we were wearing masks everywhere we went. And it seems so bizarre, but it really wasn't that long ago, was it? Like it really wasn't. Next one comes from Kristen. Says, another great weekly podcast. Very lengthy, just the way I like it. All right, we got somebody that can endure me for this long. Holy smokes. Watch the monthly as well. It was a little short to recount. It was a little short, but I know hard to recount all the monthly events and no listener feedback. I'm not sure you're going to have any going forward as that's hard. I don't know. Thanks for the movie reviews as well. We'll be watching 2 of those. We'll suggest Mr. McMahon to my husband as he was big WWE fan and old school WWF fan. He'll love that. And you'll get to see the real Vince McMahon. I will be watching Butterfly in the Sky, as I love reading Rainbow as a kid. You're not going to be watching Dirt Bike Kid, I hope. They don't make shows like that and Mr. Rogers anymore. Sesame Street, they cut to only half an hour a while ago. My son enjoyed Daniel Tiger as a toddler. Oh, I love Daniel Tiger. Spin-off of Mr. Rogers, but as he got older and phased out of PBS, the shows weren't as good. But yes, the kids need PBS in their lives. Very beneficial. Regarding pets, we just got a kitten a few weeks back. I'm jealous. Poppy. She's a black and white cow cat, similar to Mello. I know she's a tuxedo. We live in the 2nd floor of a house, so she has to be an indoor cat. I always wonder why Mello doesn't stay indoors, but you mentioned she likes to be outside. As long as she stays in the yard, because that would be my main concern. But yes, low maintenance, easier travel, especially to Disney. Glad you guys are doing well and have a great week. Yeah, Mello cat, she was an outside cat when we got her, and she was outside at our initial house. In our second house. Like I think once they're out, they don't really necessarily want to be in. Like I try to let her in when it's cold out, and occasionally like she'll come in for a little bit, but then she wants to go back out. She does travel. Like sometimes I don't see her around. I think she goes throughout the neighborhood, but I think she likes to explore. And she's got a heated house out there. She always has access to food and water. She loves going out in the sun and she plays around out there, and it's awesome to see. And I just love that cat, and I love cats in general. So like, I definitely would like to get one. And I do think like if we were to take that path in the future, as opposed to a dog, which if it was up to me, I'd probably have like 5 dogs. I just love pets so much, but I also want to go experience the world. So like, I'm like fighting this thing here, but I feel like a cat, you could go for days. You know, you put out a feeder and water, have the litter box. They even have the ones that like auto clean and stuff. That cat, most cats are pretty independent, could just thrive like that. Dogs, not so much. They got to go outside. You got to feed them because they don't have the discipline that a cat would have where it's like, oh, here's a whole bunch of food. Okay, I'm going to eat a little bit. I'll walk away. Labs, at least. I mean, I'm sure there's dogs out there that don't do this, but if I filled a whole entire bucket of food for Roxy Bear, she would eat a bucket of food. But yeah, I don't know about like, where are these shows? Like I was thinking of Captain Planet. I saw a review of apparently there was a Sega Genesis game of Captain Planet. I was like, that show had a really good message too. Why do I keep going out of focus? What am I doing wrong here? Captain Planet had a great message for kids that like protect the environment. And I'm like, I wonder, like, I don't think there's not even shows anymore. People just tune into YouTube videos. They're watching like Skibbity Toilet now, instead of Captain Planet or Daniel Tiger or Reading Rainbow. And I'm just curious to see what effect that'll have on us in the future. Maybe I'm not curious because you could probably predict that. Next one comes from, thank you for the comment, Kristen. Next one comes from Sam. It says, good evening or morning or afternoon, whenever you're watching this. Way to make it through January. Definitely not the best way to inaugurate your 40s by being sick twice, but hey, things should start looking up now, right? Up, I'm hoping. We made it 1 week. I can't stress enough how much I agree with you about the regression of school-age children and teens. There's always one topic that I talk about that really gets people going. I like this. Thank you for the feedback, guys. I feel like this is especially true with some of the basic stuff they make us cover in senior level English now. Cody would absolutely flip her lid, I think, if she heard most of my class doesn't know parts of speech, such as adverbs and prepositions, which have been learning since elementary school. And fear not, we have plenty of brain rot in our school as well. She had a student that didn't realize that you put periods at the end of sentences. This is a student that moved here from Philadelphia, so this could be a testament to the power of the Philadelphia schooling system. She ended her sentences with commas, not periods, commas, and she didn't understand what a paragraph was. This is a person that is 16 or 17 years old and is 1 year away from graduating high school and has made it this far without knowing how to put a period on a sentence. How? Okay, ran over. Yeah, she probably wouldn't flip because she would realize like that's just reality. Imagine being in 11th grade and you don't understand the concept of a period on a sentence. And she's probably not the only one. We're pushing these kids out into the world, and that's going to be our future. So be prepared. You guys sure are blessed to still have Roxy in your life. 14 is quite old for a lab. I always love watching older videos of you doing youthful things such as chasing the football or swimming in the creek. The Boo Bear is such a good girl. And you better be telling her that for me. I do. Man, I remember that takes me back to when I used to take the football or whatever thing I would have. I would throw that as hard as I could in the backyard, as far as I could. It would bounce once and she would be there to catch it. It was incredible. In the creek, she was the fastest thing. Now, like I'm a little worried this week. This is something I didn't talk about, but her appetite wasn't great. Like she's leaving food in her bowl now. Like she didn't even eat dinner last night. And I'm like, that's not normal. That's not good. She was at the vet last week. We got her blood results back. Same thing as always. I think she has Cushing's disease. Not much you can do about it. And like the vet's recommendation essentially is just keep her happy and keep her comfortable for as long as we can. So that's what we're doing. Anyways, he says, I had a dance last Saturday. No, it was not prom, just a winter formal. However, I had the opportunity to dance with that prom date. Oh man, spicy. It was good practice since I can barely even do the two-step. He was doing the MC Hammer dance. What a blast that night was. However, it was the only significant thing I can report about my week. This week has been nothing but frigid temperatures in school. Update on the Spotify thing. I figured it out. I just had to link my Spotify account to Patreon through my computer. This will make listening to this much easier. Thank you for the tip. One quick question for you, Greg. Is there anything extra on Missing Pieces that we don't already get here? I want to know if I should be listening to both or not. That's a good question. I don't know. I've only done one so far, and I feel like there was some unique stuff there. But I'm literally recording that, like, I do this every week, and I'm recording that in the middle of that week. So I don't know if you're missing much. I think I'm trying to recap more than anything. But I'm just not super driven to recap the same things that I talk about here, if that makes sense. So, like, I don't know how long I'm going to do that for. I made that commitment. It's just my spirit is in the original, the OG thing, which is now here. And I appreciate you guys coming over and supporting this. Like from a time standpoint and a financial one, this just makes so much more sense. And if this is the reason that you joined here, thank you so much for that. Like, it really is a big deal. He says, Greg and community, may all the days of your lives be filled with family, friends, and blessings. I'm truly blessed to be a part of this. See you in the next extra pieces. Thank you. Thank you for always commenting, Sam. I appreciate that. Next one, Janos. You might have the longest one. You have the longest listener feedback here. Are we going to do this? We're going to do this. He says, I feel your pain about the Florida trip. We were supposed to be in New York City last October. I've been looking at the weather this week, by the way. And every day I'm still bitter. Like, it's 80 degrees and sunny down there this whole entire time. It would have been glorious. And I think, like, well, maybe Roxy could have stayed with Deb and Bud, but Deb's going through her whole thing too. And I'm like, well, it's probably best we didn't. It's probably best. I'm trying not to think about that, but man, this kind of feels like COVID to me a little bit, where you have like the ability potentially, but there's just like this one thing that's keeping you maybe a pandemic, maybe your dog's health or your mother-in-law's health that's keeping you from doing like these amazing things. But we've been there. We've done it. I am not poor now from having gone there. The most expensive week of my life or day of my life, as the shirts say. Yeah, I'm split on it, but I wish I would have had that experience because like Clark is only this age for so long, and it's like the future is not guaranteed. I always say it. Maybe we should have done it, but we didn't. We endured the Groundhog Day here in Pennsylvania and all the stuff that came with it. Anyways, back to Janos' story. I'm going to try not to interrupt him because it's a long one. He says, we're supposed to be in New York City last October too, but then it felt miserable at my job for a long time. So I did quit on the beginning of September. Plus the weather forecast said awful weather for the time we planned our trip. There was no new job opportunity on the horizon for me. And even though I left my old job with a great salary, we decided to cancel our trip. We had our whole trip planned out. When the time of our trip came, I spent all my days thinking about what would we do now if we were in New York? That was me this week. Like, right now we'd be on Slinky Dog. Oh, we'd be going out for dinner at BOMA. It was an awful feeling, especially that despite the weather forecast said a month before, it was actually sunny and 75 all week in New York. Oh, I'm relating to this so hard. Plus, I found a new job in a week with even better salary. Dude, winning. That was when I got really disappointed. We skipped our trip because I had no job and it's supposed to be bad weather, but instead it was the best autumn weather you can dream of. Plus, I got an even better job in like no time at all. Ultimately, we decided to spend a long weekend in the Croatian seaside in an all-inclusive resort, which was great. Having free cocktails next to the beach, wearing shorts and a shirt at 9:30 in the evening at the end of October is a great experience. Hey, at least you got to do something. I'm just looking forward to like June when like we can really start things up again. I'd love to see a little orange love. I'd love to see a little orange love ball on the channel. That would be so cute. I didn't know Mello was the one who chose the Pennsylvania wilderness instead of the warm coziness of your house. I always assumed that you guys wanted her to be an outside cat. Our cat Penny was an outside cat when she was younger, but now she decided to become an indoor cat, who, by the way, always wants a lot of attention. Well, at least when she's not sleeping. She sleeps a lot these days. She's going to be 16 on the 1st of April, and it's like a mix of an old lady and a demanding toddler. Relatable. Janos and I are living a similar life, but we don't mind. We love her. Flora is really close to her, so it breaks my heart thinking about how it will affect Flora when Penny won't be with us anymore. Anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. It's better not to think of things like this. I think about things like that a lot, but 16 years is fantastic. I've seen cats make it even well past that, so you might have some time left. He goes on to say, I think over 40, it's okay to drive a minivan. I probably mentioned to you in April, but a few years back, our rental car was a Mustang. It was before we had Flora, and for the two of us, it was a great car. Sunshine even drove it on the way to Niagara Falls. She didn't drive the Pacifica, though. Makes me wonder why. We loved the Mustang so much we wanted to buy one when we returned home from that trip. But now if I had to choose between a Mustang or a Chrysler Pacifica, I would instantly get the Pacifica. Function. It's all about function. We spent 2 weeks with this minivan. It was insanely practical, and all of our luggage, plus the extra ones we bought, just disappeared in it. It was so comfortable, plus it had a 290 horsepower V6 engine, so it wasn't slow at all. Flora loved it so much. I love that you can put all the seats down very easily, right into the floor. It was a playground on wheels for her. She was so sad when she realized we can't bring it home with us. It's also a really great place to have a picnic when the rain starts to pour. Yeah, just open the back up and you can chill in there. You should rent one next time you go to the Outer Banks. Who knows? Maybe Cody will change your mind and consider letting you buy a minivan. I'm not saying she'll let you buy one, but she might consider it. By the way, we always do this when we're about to buy a car. We rent that one first. I narrow it down to 2 or 3 cars that we might choose for our next car, and I rent the one we like the most. That's a great idea, actually, because you have a test drive. I took a vehicle overnight one time, but then like ultimately decided like that's not what I wanted. But it is nice to have a little more time rather than like the 15 minutes you're in the car with the salesman to decide on such things. I'm going to continue on here. We also rented a few Mustangs here with different engine options. When we decided to buy one, it turned out that all of them were salvage cars back in the States without exception. Then the Lithuanians bought them and repaired them and selling them all over Europe. They're still doing this years later. You can find pictures of the wrecks they bought. Oh, I wouldn't like that. Of course, there are new ones selling by Ford dealers, just couldn't afford to buy them new. They basically cost twice here compared to the States. Yeah, don't buy a Mustang for twice of what it costs here. I would not do that. By the way, your Subaru too. It's kind of a rarity here. I can't stop talking about cars that go on for hours. I always loved all the little hatchbacks when we went to Europe. It was like, oh, these cars are great. I saw like one pickup truck the entire time I was there. Whereas here, it's like half the parking lot is like giant trucks and everyone else has like a crossover hatchback. There, it's like tiny cars, all standard. And They're probably much better for fuel economy and the environment, and also parking there. But I remember seeing like a truck there, and I was like, yeah, it's the first truck that I saw. I think we're in Italy, and I was like, is that a truck? It was kind of cool. He says, it'd be an honor having you as our official guide at Knoebels. We watched a ton of videos this past week about Knoebels. They're definitely going. Flora is so hyped up. Sherry told us that she'll ride bumper cars alone with Clark and no parents are allowed. Oh my goodness. Well, we'll see about that. I'm very much interested in riding the giant flume, so I'm hoping we're going to have good weather for that. We had a very similar ride, Phoenix, here in Hungary that was closed down 12 years ago. So no one will bring back childhood memories, I'm sure. The Twister, though, I'm not sure I'm brave enough for that one, but the whole vibe of the park is just, can't wait to see that in person. Yeah, Twister rattles your skull out of your entire body, basically. Your brain just rattles in there. It's so rough, these wooden coasters. I really like metal coasters, and they do have one there called the Impulse, which you should look up a ride on that. That one's going to take a little bravery to get on. And the only reason I rode it, I was scared. But my nephews were little kids getting on, and I'm like, I have to. I can't be the guy that doesn't do it. And then I loved it. So I try to do that with Clark, man. I'm like, I want to take him to Hershey Park this year and ride Wildcats Revenge, my favorite ride there, which does a bunch of barrel rolls. And I told him, I'm like, you're going to be terrified in the moment. Like, this is going to be super scary, but you will live through it and you're going to be just fine. But it's going to be scary, but exhilarating. So you just have to realize, like, you're going to be frightened. It's going to be terrifying. Anyway, I don't know if that's a good sales pitch or not, but I'm hoping to get him on some more aggressive rides this year. Thank you for the comment, Janos. Hopefully I did that one justice. Next one comes from Tom. He says, hey, Greg, congratulations on making it through January. We survived. Loving the movie TV show reviews. To me, I feel like they're the worst thing I do. I often find myself paralyzed with choice when it comes to picking something to watch because of the quantity of content available on streaming services. Been there. I've had Mr. McMahon on my watch list for a while, so I'll give it a go. I'm currently rewatching the Daredevil TV series on Disney Plus ahead of the new season coming next month, and I'm loving it just as much this time around. If you love sporting documentaries, I highly recommend Drive to Survive on Netflix. I need to watch that. It's a great behind the scenes look at Formula One. My wife isn't all interested in watching the races, but loves the documentary series. I love it because they create stories. I feel like I watched a bit of it and I'm like, this seems right up my alley. He goes on to say, it's interesting what you said about the attention span of children these days because of TikTok. It's something my wife and I have talked about in relation to our son. He's only 4, but we notice his behavior is worse on days where he's watched TV, YouTube, etc. earlier on in the day. It's as if once he started watching TV, that's all he wants to do for the rest of the day. It's really important for us to get him outside, playing with his toys, drawing, being creative, and having fun each day rather than staring at a screen. Facts. We've actually started playing age-appropriate board games together on the weekends to reduce screen time. And we all have such a great time. Thank you for another great podcast. Enjoy your week. I don't think you're alone in that. I think kids naturally want that brain rot content, whatever you want to call it. Like that's what they're drawn to. I do think it's good to limit it. And like we tried to take Clark off of YouTube because he's not watching anything productive on there, and like move him over to watching shows on Netflix like Paddington, for example, or Daniel Tiger. He's a little bit older than that show's demographic now. But I've had other people, I feel like in listener feedback before we've gotten into these topics, I feel like people have also said that they've noticed that with their kids too, where if they watch something on YouTube in particular, like some just whatever, the kid tends to like maybe emulate that behavior or become less well behaved from it. And I've had people say like when their kid plays like Roblox and other games, they get that way too. So it's challenging with kids because it's nice to give them something they can enjoy and watch. And then maybe you can get some things done. But then it's like, what's the cost? So I do think it's good to like limit screen time, set limits on that. And then, boredom is the mother of invention, right? Like kids become creative when they're bored. If you turn all the screens off and you have a pile of Lego bricks there or a notepad with like some pencils or some crayons, they're naturally going to go over there and start making stuff. That's just what kids do. They fill their time. And if you allow them to fill it with like the lowest common denominator of stuff, that's just what they're going to want to do. And yeah, that's why we try to limit that kind of stuff and get them off that. Cause it's just like, I've seen the stuff he watches on YouTube and I'd rather him get like into a story that has a message and like a lesson. That stuff on YouTube, watching people play Fortnite or watching Mario Kart footage and stuff like that. Not really that, he does watch a lot of art stuff on there, which I'm a fan of. And there's some things we watch together, but some of that stuff's it's just not doing anything for him, in my opinion. I'm like the old man now. Like, when you're like, that's going to rot your brain. That's where we're at, I guess now. That's where Tom and I are. Jennifer says, The Limoncello book series by Chris Grabenstein. I think your whole family will like it. It's wonderful, fun, and a New York Times bestseller. I haven't heard of this. Our library gave the first one and the prequel for free during summer family reading. We cannot put it down. It's a novel with games of all kinds, puzzles, and the most amazing library and creative video games. What? In the last one, there was an amazing roller coaster. Some of the books have a Wonka feel to them. This sounds intriguing. I'm going to have to look this up. Some quotes from Mr. Limoncello. Knowledge not shared is knowledge not known. The future belongs to the puzzle solvers. This sounds fun. I've never even heard of this. Chris's other series, Smartest Kid in the Universe, looks good too. Some of his other books, and some of his other books, but I've not read them yet. Nickelodeon made a movie of the first Limoncello book. Hopefully I'm saying that right. It's on Paramount. Okay, we have that. It's targeted at a young audience. James Patterson calls it the coolest library in the world and said Chris just might be the smartest writer for kids in the universe. Dang, that's bold. In one of his books with James Patterson and Max Einstein, I learned that we have GPS because of Einstein's theory of relativity. Okay, I'm making a note of that. On second thoughts, I'm not sure that Rescued by Ruby the Dog is a good recommendation. Blended was pre-Adam Sandler making movies for Netflix. There is a Mr. Rogers documentary on Netflix called Won't You Be My Neighbor on my list. Clark should see Richie Rich, which is on Netflix. I love that. Are you the one with Macaulay Culkin? I like that movie. After the second grade in the mid 90s, my family took a road trip from Texas, North Carolina up to Washington. We had a TV in the car, and then we toured the Biltmore house in Asheville where Richie Rich was filmed. And then we visited relatives, then to Washington. I want to go to the Biltmore estate. I've heard good things about it. Maybe we should do that next time we go down that way. We want to go to Tennessee this year. I want to go to Dollywood. That's my goal this year. I want to go to Dollywood. I want to go to Nashville. I want to get a hot chicken sandwich. I'm a simple man. I'm going to go meet up with Ray. He already said he'd meet us in New York City. I'm going to come to his world, Ray. I'm going to come to your town. I show up at Ray's door. He's like, "What are you doing here?" It'd be kind of funny. It wouldn't be funny. I don't know if I told this story, but we had someone show up at our house once. Some lady and her kids showed up at our house, knocked on the door. I was expecting a package to be delivered. I opened the door up, and this lady like introduced herself and said like they were in the air, they're like passing through, and they found out where we lived. And I'm just like, dude, they wanted to meet Clark. I'm like, well, Clark's at his Yammy's house, but they're like, well, can we take a picture with you? And I was like, yeah, but like, this isn't really appropriate. So I definitely wouldn't show up at your house, Ray. Don't worry. I would not do that. But yeah, that happened. It's one person that I know of has showed up here. Don't do that. Don't show up at people's houses that you're online. Even if you feel like you know them, you just don't show up at someone's house. That person could have killed me that day. They could have had a gun, shot me dead. Could have been the end of it. So going forward, I'm not opening my door either. So you could come here. I'm not unlocking the door. If I do, there'll be a gun pointed at your head. No, probably not. I'm not going to kill you. It's let's get back on track here. I should have ended this. It's not just COVID or all the electronic screens why kids are not reading or at a grade level. For some time, they stopped teaching kids to read with the phonics method. They were teaching by having kids guess and then memorize words. My impression is they do not want kids to know how to read. Also, other reasons. Look at these 2 YouTube videos about the causes of the reading problems. So she has some recommendations here. I don't know what you do to solve that. We just need to like switch the whole system up. I know there are some really great teachers out there, but I think a lot of these great teachers are having to conform to these rules in schools and these tests, and they're bound by that, and it's just problematic. So this is a problem that I don't think is going to go away anytime soon. In fact, I feel like if anything, it might actually get worse, and that's kind of concerning. So if you're a parent and you have kids, and I know not everyone can do this or have the luxury to it, but like try to not just rely on school to be the person that's raising your child. Maybe put some effort in yourself. Obviously, Jennifer's doing that, which is great. Megan, obviously, I'm sure all of you guys have kids. Tom, Tom, worst parent ever. No, I'm just kidding. You have to take some responsibility. I feel like a lot of people are just like, oh, school, take them to school and they'll learn everything they need to know in life. Not necessarily. Thank you for the comment though, Jennifer. And the recommendation, like that really is going to be big for us. Next one is from Steven. It says, hey, Greg, not much to say on my side of things, but wanted to leave some feedback nonetheless. I'm really happy you got to take Roxy on another walk. I know how much that means to you. I hope there are many to come, even if they might be at rare intervals. We might just have to go out and smell the sign, smell the posts, and come back, but that's okay. I also wanted to chime in and say I've always thought of education as being one of the most important, if not the most important thing of society. We're on the same page here, my brother. Education is how people learn to grow, to be open, to develop their intelligence, and to understand others and the things that surround us. My gosh. Well said, my friend. All those things help in making society better. I think the education should be the main focus, and I feel for all the teachers that don't get paid enough for what they do. I didn't even think about that. Like, there's states out there where teachers either aren't unionized or unions aren't as strong. Like Pennsylvania is very strong, and my wife gets paid pretty well for doing what she's doing. Other states, like I think Oklahoma might actually be one of the lowest ones. Like some of these teachers, like I've read stories on Reddit, of course, where they're like, I left my teaching job to go be a bartender, make more money as a bartender. And it's like, okay, you're providing a need for society, which is drinks, but like, what did that school lose with you leaving? And if they just paid you properly and really like thought about the value you're not only providing to these kids, but society, as Stefan, did I say Steven? Stefan said, like, I don't know how you put a value on it. It's huge, but I guess people don't feel that way. Sometimes it's easier in this, I don't want to go down this path, but sometimes it's easier to control people that aren't as educated. You know, it's easier to, people are more likely to believe things or just listen to what they're told if they're not a critical thinker, which is why I think that's the most important skill you can learn. Let's see. Shout out to Cody for having such an important job, or Mrs. Brickitect, as she's known in some circles. I like this guy. Finally, here are my 2 small wins of the week that I want to share. Bring them. We need them. First, my high school had a reunion where I got to see some of my friends from last year and the year before, and during the event, I built up the courage to talk to a girl I had a crush on back then. I'm proud to have been able to break my comfort zone and be a bit more extroverted. Oh man, I would have been like sweating in the corner, dude. Proud of you. Second, I'm reconnecting with my best friends from middle school, and I feel like he might be the greatest person I've ever met. Feels good to have someone like that by your side. Much love and looking forward to the next episode. Oh my God, the wins. Those are such good wins. Talk to a girl, rekindling friendship with my buddy. Let's go. We do have one more here. This one might rival Janos. This is from Martin, my good buddy, who I met IRL. I met both these guys in real life. Wow. That's why they leave long comments for me. They're like, Greg, I feel bad for you with this episode. I really want to pad this out a little bit, make it longer, because we have a couple people that like long episodes. Martin, Janos, thanks, guys. He says, episodes like this one, where I make a real connection and the reason I continue to be a part of this wonderful community, are more than happy to cough up my Patreon payments each month. Strap in, because this is going to be a long one. I like it. Gladiators, he starts. It seems DB beat me to this, but having this back on our screens here in the UK, such a part of my childhood, and it's fantastic that I can now share the reboot with my little people. I got to figure out how to watch that here. I might have to get a VPN or something. Even the missus is enjoying, and I'm sure it has nothing to do with the spandex-clad muscles-on-muscle gladiators. Couldn't be. No way. I'll never forget the day we were watching and DJ turned around as one of the female glads was doing her signature pose and was like, ooh, she's really buff. Whovians might recognize one of the presenters as he was a companion to Jodie Marsh's doctor. I'm assuming Doctor Who. None other than Mr. Bradley Walsh, along with his son Barney. I think if you wanted to watch it outside the UK, it's not on BBC Worldwide, but would be by using a VPN and watching it on BBC iPlayer. So that could be an opportunity for it. I'd love to see what that's like. I love the Australian Lego Masters. I feel like they do it so much better than the United States ones. And sometimes like other countries just get it right. And I think this might be the case because it's big there. On to WWE wrestling. I watched it various times throughout the years, and Mr. McMahon docuseries is certainly something that's on my radar to watch. I've actually seen the first episode, but need to finish the rest of the episodes. I can't really say I'm surprised about how he was, about who he has been exposed to be. I'm quite liking the fact that all WWE programming is now on Netflix in the UK, including a hefty back catalog, so I can relive some of my favorite moments from the Attitude Era. That was like, to me, the best time. I really loved like the NWO, like when they went to WCW and they had Hollywood Hogan and like there was the NWO, and then that was like the response. Like they really tried to mature it up in like the Attitude Era where Vince McMahon and Stone Cold were going at each other, and it was like you were like drinking beer and then your boss is coming down on you. That's like what the whole thing was with them. I'd like to go back and watch that. I think Clark would like that too. He says, congrats on the weight loss. I too have just embarked on a new weight loss journey and have been a lot less mobile over the last 9 months due to the back injury. I've piled on the pounds. I want to improve my general health prior to surgery that I'm hoping to get, but I have a 6 to 12 month waiting list. So I have some time to work on it. I've just re-downloaded the All Trails app to help me find some different places to walk, but also to keep a good record of the walks I've done. I love that app. We've never had Reading Rainbow in the UK, but I've heard about it from various Star Trek podcasts because where our man LeVar Burton has been on as a guest. I love that guy. Incidentally, you mentioned he said something about doing it for the benefit of his kids, and it's fitting that at least one of his daughters has followed him into acting and appeared on his character's daughter in the last season of Star Trek Picard. I had no idea. Regarding the Spotify integrations podcast, it still says the content is locked despite connecting the correct Spotify and Patreon accounts. It does, though, offer to subscribe to your Patreon, which when clicked brings me over to Patreon, which when logged in will allow it to be played. Very weird. I wonder if it's because you're in a different country. I don't have enough people to determine if that's an ongoing issue, but other people seem like it's working okay. But they might be in the US, so I don't know. You are not only the one who dreams of the minivan life. If money was no object, I would seriously consider the Volkswagen ID Buzz 4. Oh my gosh. I've been looking at that. If you guys didn't know, Volkswagen's making an electric van that looks exactly like the old school Volkswagen minibuses. And I would love one, but it's all electric, which sounds cool, but not super practical when you're going on road trips, you need to charge. And the infrastructure is kind of there, but I don't want to have to drive. And I think it's only like a 200-mile range. I don't want to drive for 200 miles, have to charge for 30 minutes to drive 200 miles to charge. That's like the one thing that's holding me back. I think the time when I get an electric car would be when they make swappable batteries. Like you pull into a station, essentially, with like a gas station of sorts. And instead of sitting there charging, if you temporarily just rented the fuel canisters, which would be like batteries, they pull a battery out, they put a battery in, you drive away. Wouldn't that be awesome? I know we're not there yet, but if you just pull a battery, put a battery, you just are always cycling. You never own the battery of your car. It's just something. It's like the gasoline that's in your car. You buy it, you use it, you get a new one. I just think that would be great. But I was thinking even our trip to North Carolina, we'd have to stop 3 times on the way down there if we had a Tesla or something. I'm just I don't know if I want to do that. Plus you pay a lot of extra money for an electric car, money that could be used for fuel. So I don't know, we'll probably eventually get there, I'm assuming. But right now I feel like having a hybrid is the move. One that's gas and electric and then gets 40 miles per gallon, which would be a Toyota Sienna would be perfect. Sam Bartz is freaking out right now. He's like, Toyota! I know you're listening, Sam. Anyways, I like the look of it, and at some point, I think we'll need to go electric. I'm not sure I'd want to sleep in it, but certainly seems to have a lot of room inside. It's just that hefty price tag. I think it starts around 70,000 pounds here. Oh, you really should visit Paris. It's a beautiful city, and there's so much more than the Eiffel Tower. I visited with my family around 12 years ago, and I would love to go back with the missus one day. I did promise her at the time I'd take her, but it was around the same time we started saving to pay for a wedding, and then along came children. Life happens, but that's going to be the memorable thing in the end. It's not going to be that trip. It's going to be the memories you made with that wonderful family. Finally, the whole tipping debate. Okay, this is from a guy in the UK. What's he say? In general, we'll tip around 10%, but if only if it's a proper restaurant with some actual decent customer service. We often go out for big extended family meals, and this would be the kind of place we'd tip. On the other end of the scale, Mo and I snuck in a cheeky Nando's last week, and we found our own table, ordered by scanning a QR code in the menu with our phones. So the only interaction with the staff was when they brought up glasses to go and fill with fizzy pop soda ourselves and to deliver our food. In that instance, I don't believe they did enough to deserve a tip. Another reason we generally tip, though, is because Mo works in hospitality, so she's on the receiving end of it too, and know what a difference tips can make to workers. It certainly allows us to do more fun stuff as a family. Yeah, so you see both sides of it, I suppose. In conclusion, and it might not be every week I connect on this level with the podcast, but I'm glad that I have it in my life. And that's why I made the time to come over here and leave some feedback. Take care and love to the family, Martin and the family. Thank you, Martin. I'm glad that episode meant something to you. I don't know so much about the episode about Punxsutawney Phil. We'll do that for you. But I enjoy sharing this every week. I try to share something that's going on and something that I find interesting or something that meant something to me this week. Will I connect with everyone all the time? Maybe not. Will I say things that you have no relation to, or like doesn't matter to you? That's definitely a possibility, because we're all so different. But ultimately, we're all kind of making it through this life, the goods and the bads. And that's, I think, what this podcast ultimately shares. It's just like a life story told week by week. The joys, the sorrows, sometimes the fears, the excitement, the new things, the old things. It's all out here, and that's why I like doing this. And this one, your guys' listener feedback, you crank this. We're now 1 hour 20 minutes. Is that long enough? I feel like that might be a little too long for some of you folks. You might have to listen to this over time. And now my eyes, because it has a dark background on Patreon with white letters, all I can see are lines of text from reading your guys' stuff. What would be really cool? I watched, okay, this is, we're going to end this here, I promise you, but there was this guy that does kind of like a show like mine where he talks about his week, but then he has voicemail, like people call in with responses, and it'd be so much better to have this in your own voice. But I feel like a lot of people wouldn't want to do that, where it's a lot easier just to type something. But then I butcher it because I suck at reading your guys' stuff, and I feel bad about that. But hopefully this one did justice. I hope that you enjoyed coming along with me on this week in Extra Pieces. And of course, I'll be back next week to tell you all about all the snow that hopefully we didn't get, and everything that I get into and up to in my week, in my life. So on that, I hope you have a glorious day, evening, morning, Sunday, whenever you listen to this, and we'll find you in the next Extra Pieces.